Under the cold October night sky, the streets of Pyongyang glowed crimson and gold. Thousands of synchronized footsteps echoed through Kim Il-sung Square as North Korea celebrated a milestone, the 80-year anniversary of the ruling Workers' Party of Korea. It was not merely a parade, it was a grand theatrical reaffirmation of power, unity, and defiance. A moment when the regime sought to project its strength not only to its people, but also to the world. At the center of this spectacle stood Kim Jong Un, his familiar dark coat buttoned tightly against the chill, his expression composed yet commanding. Cameras from state broadcaster KCTV captured his every gesture, the slow wave, the brief smile, and the symbolic salute that sent ripples through the vast military formation before him. Around him stood three of the most strategically significant foreign dignitaries in attendance: Russia's Dmitry Medvedev, China's Premier Li Qiang, and Vietnam's Communist Party General Secretary To Lam. Their presence was deliberate, a message to Washington, Seoul, and Tokyo that Pyongyang's alliances in Asia remain firm despite years of sanctions and isolation. Children approached the North Korean leader with bouquets of flowers, a recurring image of reverence repeated in every major national celebration. Kim accepted them with a rare softness, kneeling briefly to embrace the young presenters. Behind them, enormous formations of soldiers stood like sculpted stone, rows upon rows perfectly aligned. Then came the roar of mechanized columns, tanks, armored vehicles, and intercontinental missiles mounted on transporter erector launchers rolling through the square. Each was greeted with cheers, each accompanied by a blaring march from the military orchestra. Aerial footage showed the parade's choreography forming the number 80, a striking image visible even from high above Pyongyang. It was propaganda engineered for both domestic pride and international provocation. The Workers' Party, which Kim's grandfather founded in 1945, has survived war, famine, sanctions, and near-total diplomatic isolation. Yet tonight, it was portrayed as indestructible, the unbroken chain linking 3 generations of the Kim dynasty. As the leaders watched from the podium, Medvedev and Li Qiang exchanged polite applause, their faces calm but unreadable. For Moscow and Beijing, the symbolism was multi-layered. Russia, embroiled in prolonged conflict in Ukraine, has leaned increasingly on North Korean support, from munitions deals to political solidarity in the UN Security Council. China, meanwhile, continues to balance its role as Pyongyang's economic lifeline with its desire to prevent a new escalation on the peninsula. For both powers, appearing side by side with Kim was an unmistakable act of validation. The parade itself was tightly choreographed, every salute, every march, every camera angle designed for psychological precision. State media called it a demonstration of eternal loyalty and unyielding revolutionary will. To outside observers, it was also a test of messaging, a chance for Kim Jong Un to remind the world that despite economic hardship and food shortages, his grip on the state machinery remains absolute. Behind the celebration lies a deeper political narrative. The 80th anniversary coincides with renewed nuclear rhetoric and accelerating missile programs. Just days before the parade, Pyongyang announced it had conducted a successful underwater drone test and unveiled plans to expand its tactical nuclear arsenal. Western analysts interpret the timing as deliberate, an effort to frame the anniversary not just as a party milestone, but as a show of modernized deterrence. Still, what captured the audience's attention most were the images of Kim standing beside China's Li Qiang. The two exchanged words and applause as the marching bands thundered past. For North Korea, China's presence carries symbolic reassurance. Its primary ally is watching, its lifeline remains open. Yet even that relationship is carefully balanced. Beijing's support, though critical, is often conditional, designed to maintain regional stability rather than enable confrontation. As fireworks lit the sky above Pyongyang, KCTV's narration struck a familiar tone of triumph. Under the wise leadership of our respected comrade Kim Jong Un, our party and people marched toward the eternal victory of socialism. The audience erupted in rehearsed enthusiasm. Children waved red flags. Soldiers shouted oaths of loyalty. The spectacle reached its crescendo as the parade's final column passed. a massive convoy carrying long-range missiles believed to be part of North Korea's new solid fuel systems. Analysts say these weapons, if operational, could drastically shorten launch preparation times, making them harder for adversaries to intercept. International reaction was predictably divided. Washington condemned the parade as provocative and destabilizing, with Pentagon officials stressing that North Korea continues to prioritize showmanship over the well-being of its people, South Korea, meanwhile released satellite imagery showing what it described as expanded missile transporter platforms visible near Pyongyang's parade ground, evidence, it said, of North Korea's ongoing missile production. Yet within the country, none of that criticism reached the crowd. The domestic narrative was airtight. The leader had delivered security, dignity, and pride. For Kim Jong Un, the parade also served a personal political purpose. In recent months, reports from South Korean intelligence indicated rising economic discontent across the countryside, with food shortages and power cuts growing severe. By staging a grand military display, Kim sought to reframe the conversation from internal hardship to national resilience. His leadership persona, part soldier, part patriarch, was on full display. The affectionate images of him hugging children were juxtaposed on state TV with the might of tanks and missiles, merging tenderness with power, a familiar propaganda formula perfected by his predecessors. The participation of foreign delegations also marked a return to active diplomacy after years of COVID-era isolation. For Moscow, the visit by Dmitry Medvedev was significant. It followed months of speculation about growing arms cooperation between the two nations, especially reports suggesting Pyongyang supplied artillery shells to Russia in exchange for satellite technology and energy aid. Though neither side confirmed these claims, the optics were clear: a deepening of ties under shared resistance to Western sanctions. Meanwhile, Vietnam's presence added another layer of meaning. The Communist Party delegation led by Tu Lam symbolized North Korea's continued identification with a global network of socialist governments, albeit a shrinking one. Hanoi's participation also reinforced the legacy of Kim Il-sung's support for revolutionary movements during the Cold War, reminding both domestic and foreign audiences of Pyongyang's ideological lineage. Throughout the night, the spectacle remained consistent: perfectly timed waves of applause, rows of soldiers raising their rifles in synchronization, and a flood of crimson banners reflecting the massive torchlight displays. Loudspeakers blasted revolutionary anthems, while commentators recited long passages praising the immortal exploits of the great leaders. For the regime, such choreography serves a practical function. It sustains the mythology of collective discipline and moral superiority against external enemies. In the reviewing stand, Kim Jong Un appeared alternately animated and reflective. His gestures were measured, but his occasional smiles toward Medvedev and Li Qiang hinted at quiet satisfaction. The foreign presence validated the regime's narrative that North Korea, despite decades of sanctions, remains a relevant player in regional geopolitics. As the parade concluded, the square erupted in a final roar. Fireworks illuminated the skyline over the Taedong River, casting the capital's monuments, the Juche Tower, the Arch of Triumph, the Party Foundation Monument, in a fiery glow. The broadcast ended with a close-up of Kim waving to the crowd, his silhouette framed by the flickering lights of pyrotechnics. For North Korean television, this was the final image to linger: the supreme leader standing firm, surrounded by symbols of loyalty and firepower. But beyond the polished imagery lies a country facing profound challenges. Satellite data suggests that agricultural output has declined sharply for the third consecutive year, while cross-border trade with China, though partially restored, remains far below pre-pandemic levels. The United Nations estimates that nearly half the population faces chronic food insecurity, yet none of these issues found their way into the day's official speeches. Instead, the regime's message was singular and defiant: the party endures, the leader stands strong, and the enemies beyond the horizon remain powerless to break them. From the international perspective, this anniversary underscores the persistence of North Korea's isolation and its resilience within that isolation. The Workers' Party's survival for 80 years represents not only political endurance, but also a form of institutional adaptation. Each Kim generation has reinvented the narrative of resistance, from Kim Il-sung's anti-imperialist revolution to Kim Jong-il's military-first doctrine to Kim Jong Un's nuclear deterrence and technological modernization. Tonight's celebration, therefore, was not simply about the past. It was about the continuity of a system that defines itself in opposition to the world. The parade, with its blend of militarism and festivity, conveyed one enduring truth, that for Pyongyang, power and performance are inseparable. The leader's legitimacy depends as much on spectacle as on substance, and on nights like this, both merge into one. As dawn approached, the last echoes of the parade faded across Pyongyang. The streets returned to their strict silence. For millions watching on state television, the images would be replayed in loops, a constant reminder that even amid hardship, the nation remains invincible under the party's red banner. And for the regime, that message, carefully constructed, globally broadcast, was the real triumph of the night.